I'm going to see where this is headed to. Let me double check my output of GarageBand because it might be. Yeah, freaking output through my speakers. All right. Then it stopped my recording. Okay. All right. Yeah, man, let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so it's recording. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the Evolution Security Podcast. It has been a while, has it not, Eric?
Yes, it has. Our
We
weird schedules lately. Yeah, it's been
yeah,
difficult to get this recording going, or a recording, should I
yeah,
say.
we've been off for 2 weeks, not really of our choosing, but I mean, I worked to record a guest last week and internet issues stopped it from happening. Man, it was a pain in the butt. But we have a good connection together, so I'm circumspect that it was that gentleman's internet, but we'll see. Sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes it happens,
Yeah.
with this recording system. But yeah, it has been tough for either one of us to have even singular guests. And so for audience members out there that are used to seeing it each week, we apologize. Just stick around with this.
Yeah, we've got a lot of fun stuff planned and some guests in the pipeline that are going to be great. Well, Eric, let's jump in here. We're just doing a quick conversation on a few things. This is one of our gear and mindset issues. Dang it, sorry. Our gear and mindset episodes. So we're going to kind of jump in here. I'm going to talk about some very different gear, Eric. Long story short, my son, his car died about a week and a half ago.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. So what ended up happening is we started looking for a car for him, and any reliable car that would be between 5 and 10 years old was going to be about $10,000-$12,000, right? So, and he would have to get a loan and all that jazz. So my wife and I thought, you know what? I'm planning on buying a new car here in about a year anyway. Why don't we just sell him my car? He won't have to get a loan. We can give him a decent deal on it, and it's a Lexus IS350 F Sport. Now, I normally would not sell that to my son or a son. I would probably recommend not doing that because that's kind of a monster of a car, Eric. You can attest to
Mm-hmm.
that. But my son is extremely responsible. He everywhere he drives, he puts the cruise control on the speed limit.
Yeah.
And he does not like riding with me because I speed.
I think we've talked about that before. I'm always giving you a hard time about your lead foot.
Well, and you can see in the choice of my cars that a 19-year-old young man actually occupies this 50-year-old body, and if I can't stress enough that that is absolutely true. That 19-year-old has matured in a lot of ways, but still likes fun toys, guitars, and cars. Now, so I got the car that I've been looking at for a while now. I didn't want to spend as much as I did on my last one, so I looked into a few cars that would be fun, and I had narrowed it down to a Subaru BRZ. Real cool. Off the showroom floor has handling that's set up crazy. It's all about a true sports car, and it's all about handling. It's not super fast, but it's plenty quick enough. But I love the car. It's a blast. Lots of cool tech in it and all that jazz. But the stereo is heinous.
No, we can't have that.
No. The levels, okay, if you run the stereo at like, not fun, damn. at talking level with your wife or somebody in the car. It sounds good. You turn it up at any moderate volume that you want to cruise down the street and crank some good music like musicians like to do,
Mm-hmm.
falls apart and is maybe one of the worst stereos I've ever driven at any length of time, including freaking rentals and stuff like that, and stock stereos in other cars. So I've been researching, and I'm gonna upgrade all the stereo in there. I was getting impatient about it, trying to jump into it. It's over my head right now. So I decided I'd slow down and research it. I don't need crazy bass or anything like that. I just need a quality rich sound. So I'm trying to keep the original head unit, and I'll let that run the dash speakers, etc. I've already got some speakers for the rear, some Infinity reference speakers for the dash and the rear, and I'm going to upgrade the door speakers and get those are 6.5-inch woofers, a mid bass, I guess you call them, and then I'm getting a new. I call it a head because that's what we talk about, heads in amplifiers, but a new amp for it to run all the speakers, and then put a small sub in there. I'm just going to get an 8-inch speaker, 8-inch sub. I don't need a huge sub, and that's another thing about that car. It is tiny. It's like a little bit bigger than a daggum Miata.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to keep it small and simple. But yeah, I'm learning quite a bit. There's all these little wiring harnesses and dampening material and all this stuff I never thought about. It's just a different world going into this. I can rattle off what you need with guitar gear and what's good, what's not, real quick. But yeah, this is out of my realm.
All right. Sorry, Aaron. Sorry, folks. I had to take that call. I am going home early from this trip, so I needed to finish booking my travel back. So apologies. So, Aaron, yeah, right before I took that phone call, what I was going to say is I can insert some pictures of your car for the YouTube video.
Okay,
So it just puts
cool.
it in there since you mention it.
Yeah,
Folks kind of like to see stuff like that. But
yeah.
yeah, man. You got anything more on that?
No, that's all I was gonna say. It's that's we have to have gear on here. I don't know of any other gear we can talk about.
Well, I do actually. This
Okay.
might seem a little silly, but I've been traveling a lot, and we'll do shows with me on the road quite a bit. And I don't know why it's taken me this long to get a better mic
Oh
for
yeah.
the show. So, I'll just show here. This is a Audio Technica 2020 USB mic. Now, the one that I use on our normal recordings is a Audio Technica 2020 XLR mic, and it's not too expensive. I think I paid $200 for it, but they've come way down. But just a real good sounding mic. But this one is a USB version. Comes with a little stand here. You can see for the audience there.
Yeah, man,
But
that mic sounds great. It sounds better than mine. I've just never had. I just run this mic for miking guitars and the show. It sounds just fine, but I yours sounds even better.
well, all of it fits in this small little pouch, and I plan on just keeping it in my suitcase, for
Sweet.
when I travel. I'm gonna get a better camera, something that's small, and probably a small ring light, so I can still have decent lighting when I'm on the road. But I'm pretty pumped about this new mic.
And bro, I don't know if you can talk about this or not, but don't you have to head overseas at some point in the future here?
So, Aaron, I have been on and off as a reserve. So, not soon right now. No,
Okay. Well,
excuse
I
me.
hope you don't.
I personally do. I like the money.
That's true. That's true. I remember that. I think last time you were deployed, you were shelling out cash for all kinds of toys, including that drum kit, right? Wasn't that the
Yeah,
last big purchase from making
that
some
was
extra
one.
money
I
overseas?
think I was pretty responsible. I got quite a bit of
More responsible
ammo.
than me.
I got quite a bit of ammo, and yeah, I got my new drum kit, and I think I bought another pistol, and I do think I bought a few parts for a couple of AR builds, but I think I was pretty responsible. But the rest of it, was going into investments for retirement and do the savings, of course.
Bro,
So
you're reminding me of a question. It used to be the case, but is that extra money tax free since you're deployed?
no,
Did
mm-mm,
it Was that ever the case?
mm-mm.
Okay.
That's for contractors, and they have
Okay.
to be there for I think close to a year. But
Oh,
nah,
okay.
nah,
Okay.
I'm a DA civilian, so yeah, we get taxed, and boy, it's a bunch.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the extra pays, kind of balances some of that out.
Qu- Quoting what's called Raising Arizona. Government do take a bite, don't she?
Yeah,
When he picked up his first paycheck from his new job.
yeah,
I need a
that's a
baby
good movie.
high.
Pretty good show.
Oh yeah.
Well, so I guess that's a bit for now. What do you think, man?
Man, there was something else I was gonna say. Oh, I was just gonna say yesterday we had a mix up on our times. I didn't make it clear what I was talking about today, and then you call me while I'm at the gun range with my buddy. Hey, Aaron, aren't we about to get on?
Yeah, and you say what? I think you said bullshit, and I'm like, what? I'm all sitting here just like I am right now with my notes ready, and that's pretty funny. Well, I guess with that said, Aaron, I told you an interesting story, and part of this isn't necessarily a good story. I think it's informative, and it kind of, it really led to kind of something we could talk about on the air.
Yeah.
So, and this is in reference to a conflict I had with a colleague here during this trip. And this is a colleague. He's quite a bit younger than me. He's super smart. Um, but he's got some interesting proclivities. But I mean, I have had lengthy discussions with him on all kinds of subjects, and are typically very interesting discussions. Even though we would disagree at times, years ago he tended to lean conservative. Maybe with a little bit of young man tendencies towards some leftist ideas, but overall he was pretty conservative from my remembrance. But during this training event that I'm here for, we got on some interesting subjects that I started going, man, what's going on with some of his thoughts? And one of the first things that really made me think, man, what in the world? And he's, something we were talking about the economy, and he was talking about living wage and how people be better off if most of uh their basic goods and roof over their head was all taken care of. And I'm like, man, that kind of sounds like Marxism to me. And he said, well, Marxism never been properly given a chance. I said,
Ah,
everywhere it has been given a chance, it has led to nothing but despotism and desperation for the people under
bro,
it.
that's their common refrain is it's not been given a good chance.
Yeah, and then he also said, this was what was hilarious to me, is he said in all those instances, if the US CIA would stay out of it, I was like, you're kidding me. Of course the CIA has been involved in other countries and trying to subvert some of that. But you know what also else happened? The Soviet Union infiltrated our academia. That's proven. Sent sent Russians over here that could speak English just like us, and they integrated into our systems of life, man. China's done the same thing, by the way. But anyway, so we kind of dropped that subject because we had to get on to some other training tasks. But then some of it pushed into, um, he said something about the nuclear family. And I said, well, come to think of it, a majority of our social woes come from the destruction of the nuclear family by the left. And he looked at me all funny. He said, the nuclear family is a bad thing. It should be
Oh my.
destroyed. Yeah, I mean, now you're looking, you're thinking, this guy, what his mindset is just clearly outside the mainstream.
Not even
And
outside of the mainstream. Dude, that okay, devoid of what the hell,
yeah,
dude?
yeah.
It
So
needs to be he said the nuclear family needs to be destroyed.
yeah, yeah. And so then the conversation, I basically said no. He said something about crime rates. He tried to draw the conclusion that the destruction or less of the nuclear family, the percentage is going way down. We got a lot of, you know, non-nuclear family individuals raising children. But he said, yeah, we're at the lowest crime rate since the 70s.
Ah, okay.
I said, so
I know what he's
correlate,
talking about. Okay.
you're trying to correlate that the destruction of the nuclear family has contributed to the excuse me, crime rates going down. And I then looked at him, and at this point, he started talking about that. Um, had I been in a ministry before, had I went over to see tribes and how they operate and how their families work, and I know what he was trying to go towards because I've heard him talk about polyamorous societies and all that BS, and he kept saying something about I was uneducated and all this, and I said,
Oh,
so you're going to insult my education, and I said you're going to tell me something about tribes elsewhere. We're talking about families inside the United States. And then I told him, I said, listen,
and in Western society.
yeah. And so I told him, I said, the main reason that crime has reduced since the 70s or 60s for that matter has been primarily better policing, more prosecution, harder sentencing, and also because the peak of violent crime was 1991. So what happened after 1991? In the early 90s, we started having shell issue concealed carry proliferate across the United States. So I know that is a contributor to all that. But at this point, Aaron,
Risk to criminal, higher risk to criminals.
yeah. And Aaron, I feel bad. I don't want to be in confrontations at work. I felt I was being pretty calm. Was I a little animated? Sure. Because guys insulting me. So I'm getting a little bit, I'm, starting to raise my voice just a little bit, not too bad. Um, but then when I had stated those facts, so those facts went against his orthodoxy that he believes in, and so he turned to the side and he just like, I can't talk about this anymore. And I said, so if somebody gives you contrarian information that might be correct or another way to look at things, and before I could finish saying that, he throws a chair across the room, takes a step back, balls his fist up and said, no, because I'm going to get pissed off, and said it real loud. So I put my hands up and I said, listen, this is getting unprofessional. And he stepped back further when I did that. And he said, yeah, it's about to get unprofessional.
Oh
And
my.
by that time, luckily, one of the instructors came and said, hey guys, we can't be doing this. And I agreed. And I'm the senior person in this room. And so I was going to handle it in an agency manner. And of course, he was still being, acting like a petulant child. And of course, Aaron, I'm not going to get into a confrontation physically in my job. I'm not losing my job over some person that clearly isn't right in the head. Um,
Well,
and so, yeah,
he
go ahead.
knows, and he also would have been tangling with someone he probably didn't need to tangle with.
Well, Aaron, he knows about everything I do. He has listened to our show multiple times when we were deployed
Maybe
together.
he's
So,
listening right now. Hey there,
uh,
buddy. You gave us a good topic to talk about. Thanks a bunch.
yeah, and Aaron, I mean, frankly, if he hears it, I don't mind. He should know he was in the wrong, but it is a important subject because it meets some of our subjects, which number one is dealing with a contact or unknown contact. He's a known contact, but he was absolutely giving me indicators that he was wanting to swing on me or do something. And so, I mean, I thought in my head, as I put my fence up, I'm like, if this guy swings on me, I'm simply just gonna default and crash, or just clinch up, take him down, and control him with jujitsu. I wouldn't hurt the guy.
Yeah.
Number one, that'll keep me from getting fired. Number two, I don't want to hurt the guy. I want
Yeah.
him to freaking chill out. But but
It,
yeah, I
it's
mean, it was.
amazing what a clinch and even just a clinch, how much that can calm somebody down.
Yeah, yeah,
But
but
Eric, but before you go much further, because I know the evidence that you're talking about, and I think it's good to interject where he was, I believe, 100% where he was coming from.
yeah, I'd like to certainly hear what you got.
So I found a Mother Jones, and we know how solid their research is. Um, and I think maybe some thoughts and other articles and other studies have kind of just simply taken this same look at this. Okay. Because we know, of course, that a lot of the crime issues, unfortunately, it's with, like you said, breakdown of the nuclear family, which usually means, unfortunately, or often means that it's single mothers raising kids, and often, not all the time, but often that leads to poverty. And it's well known that poverty is definitely, it contributes to individuals, especially young people, moving into crime. Now, so this is an article by Kevin Drum, and this is as it's the time period also matters too, because this was back in 2012 when he wrote this article. But he says he's reading a study, I believe, from another gentleman that says Philip Cohen notes today that homicide rates in, let's key in on this, bro, Washington D.C. They're talking about one city, so that's where this all seems to stem from, have plummeted over the past couple of decades. The city that used to be the murder capital of the world has seen murder rates fall by three quarters. At the same time, the rate of single motherhood has remained steady. That's surprising because it was a big part of the story 20 years ago when DC was the murder capital of the world, of the country, during a national crime wave. I think single mothers, especially those who were raising kids back in the 90s, deserve an apology for the conventional wisdom purveyors. Um, so I'm not going to read this whole article, but he kind of disproves, tries to use this single city as a quick way to refute common sense, just simple common sense. And, fascinating, he says, as you see in the chart above, the violent crime rate, which includes murder, rape, robbery, assault, has an inverted U shape. So if we're looking for something to explain both the rise and fall of crime, I suppose our first task would be to find something else with an inverted U shape. That wouldn't prove all by itself that this was a cause of change in crime rates, but it would certainly give us a starting point. But what could it be? Cohen notes that since the Washington Post is no longer able to blame violent crime, no, listen to that. He's completely refuted it, or they've refuted it with one little study that they've done. Is no longer able to blame violent crime on family breakdown. It now contributes to declining murder rates to rising incomes, improved law enforcement technology, and community relations, and better trauma care. Maybe so. But just like single motherhood, those are all sociological explanation. I wonder if we should go further afield.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
So
wouldn't. Yep,
doesn't that sound kind of like his springboard, or at least I'm
could
sure
be.
many other articles that he's read, or supposed studies, etc.
Yeah, because Aaron, I didn't find anything specific, in what I was trying to find. Now I could dig further, but this is kind of something you and I were talking about. There are multivariate reasons for crime. There's multivariate reasons why a person becomes the person that they become.
Hmm.
But the late great Dr. William April talked about that all the time, about how the home environment will shape a person and how their mind works. So you can't discount the fact that when a boy doesn't have a father as a father figure, that doesn't affect that young man, especially if that father left that young man or that young boy.
The true abandonment.
Right. That affects young boys. And it especially can affect, you know, when they grow up. And we know that, some of this information, there's plenty of data out there. The purpose wasn't to do a dive into the studies themselves. But we know, various health, our mental health is affected by the home environment, and especially if children are raised in foster situations, and again, a mother that may have to raise those children but has to work. They're not really being raised by their mother per se,
Well, and
or
not
vice
just work.
versa.
Work, that's fine, but it's often they have to work extra jobs, etc., or they may not be able to work depending on what the situation is, right? So
Right.
then
And
you've got welfare and things like that are hard to live under, dependency and things like that.
yep,
And
drug
I
dependency,
did want to
absolutely.
say, circling back though, real quick, I just want to make this fine point that so we're talking about again the disillusion of the nuclear family. We're talking about the family itself. It doesn't. The point is that at macro levels in anything that you can analyze, you can simplify things. And the nuclear family, a mother father that cares about their child, their children, it is a literal macro level of society. It is a mini society unto itself. And there's all kinds of things that little society can do to make their society better within
Well,
the
and Aaron,
home.
and at the same time, Aaron, let's not forget the fact that the nuclear family has part of its inception in the Judeo-Christian
Hmm.
value system,
Yep.
right? And so there's another thing that I was going to say, that the destruction or dissolution of the nuclear family, Aaron, was absolutely a tool of Marxism.
Oh yeah.
So that's another reason that
So again, circling back to him saying that the nuclear family needs to be dissolved.
yeah, and again with his other comments about Marxism and his Marxist thought process on how people should be able to live and be provided for. So it does honestly make me think: did he gather uh, that thought process from Marxist thought process or Marxist theory? So anyway, Aaron, real quick, so I'm going to try to do this here with my stuff on the road here. So Again, this is an older article. You and I spoke about this. This is more of a summary. And this is an older article from 1995 from the Heritage Foundation. And it's the title of it is The Real Root Cause of Violent Crime, the Breakdown of Marriage, Family, and
Well,
Community.
bro, let's be clear. It may be an older article, but it literally coincides with the time period of rising crime and then the fall of it.
That's absolutely why I
Okay,
believe
so
that it was
yeah, so
absolutely relevant.
it's very relevant. Yes.
So, introduction. Policymakers at last are coming to recognize the connection between the breakdown of American families and various social problems. The unfolding debate over welfare reform, for instance, has been shaped by the wide acceptance in recent years that children born into single parent families are much more likely than children of intact families to fall into poverty and welfare dependence themselves in later years. These children, in fact, face a daunting array of problems. While this link between illegitimacy and chronic welfare dependency now is better understood, policymakers also need to appreciate another strong and disturbing pattern evident in scholarly studies: the link between illegitimacy and violent crime, and between the lack of parental attachment and violent crime. Without an understanding of the root causes of criminal behavior, how criminals are formed, members of Congress and state legislatures cannot understand why whole sectors of society, particularly in urban areas, are being torn apart by crime. And without that knowledge, sound policy making is impossible. A review of the empirical evidence in the professional literature of the social sciences gives policymakers an insight into the root causes of crime. Consider, for instance, over the past 30 years, the rise in violent crime parallels the rise in families abandoned by fathers. High crime neighborhoods are characterized by high concentrations of families abandoned by fathers. State by state analysis by heritage scholars indicates that a 10% increase in the percentage of children living in single parent homes leads typically to a 17% increase in juvenile crime, which we know juvenile crime, what it leads to, adult crime,
Yep.
right? In many cases, the rate of violent teenage crime corresponds with the number of families abandoned by fathers. The type of aggression and hostility demonstrated by a future criminal often is foreshadowed in unusual aggressiveness as early as age 5 or 6. The future criminal tends to be an individual rejected by other children as early as the first grade, who goes on to form his own group of friends, often the future delinquent gang. On the other hand, neighborhoods with high degrees of religious practice are not high crime neighborhoods. Even in higher crime inner city neighborhoods, well over 90% of children from safe, stable homes do not become delinquents. By contrast, only 10% of children from unsafe, unstable homes in these neighborhoods avoid crime. Criminals capable of
Wow.
sustaining marriage gradually move away from a life of crime after they get married. The mother's strong affection attachment towards her child is the child's best buffer against a life of crime. A father's authority and involvement in raising his children are also a great buffer against a life of crime. The scholarly evidence, in short, suggests that at the heart of the explosion of crime in America is the loss of the capacity of fathers and mothers to be responsible in caring for the children they bring into the world. This loss of love and guidance at the intimate level of marriage and family has broad social consequences for children and for the wider community. The empirical evidence shows that too many young men and women from broken families tend to have a much weaker sense of connection with their neighborhood and are prone to exploit its members to satisfy their unmet needs or desires. This contributes to a loss of sense of community and to the disintegration of neighborhoods into social chaos and violent crime. If policymakers are to deal with the root causes of crime, therefore they must deal with the rapid rise in illegitimacy. Now, just a few more sentences here, and I think it that does justice for what we wanted to talk about. Official Washington's view of crime. The professional literature in criminology is quite at odds with orthodox thinking of official Washington. Many lawmakers in Congress and in the states assume that the high level of crime in America must have its roots in material conditions, such as poor employment opportunities and shortage of adequately funded social programs.
Mhm.
But members of Congress and other policymakers cannot understand the root causes of crime if they insist on viewing it purely as material terms. The view blinds policymakers to the personal aspects of crime, including moral failure, the refusal to exercise personal responsibility, and the inability or refusal to enter into family and community relationships based on love, respect, and attachment both to the broader community and to a common code of conduct. So, Aaron, I'll just go ahead and end it there. I think that does justice to just a summary of what has been empirically traced and scholars have looked at. And see, Aaron, I mean, do you have any thoughts on any particular clauses in that?
Well, I am just kind of looking at this at the circling back to I just don't understand how that gentleman could believe this stuff when it really is simply common sense. What you're talking about, the stability that a child feels from infancy to being a young adult by having two loving parents, and not just two loving parents, loving, responsible, and stable siblings. All of it contributes to single individuals within that small society that we just talked about earlier, that creates people that are better adjusted, that have a tendency, because we're talking about percentages of populations here, but those individuals will have a tendency to choose more responsible behavior. And again, so that's just so commonsensical why he could believe in that as basically a faith to be defended emotionally, and frankly starting to become violent because his faith was being questioned.
Yep. Yeah. And Aaron, and that was one of the things that I brought up during the discussion was I said, are you tracking what happened to the murder rate between 2019 and 2020? 2020. And at this point, he's starting to shut down because he probably didn't know. And Aaron, I don't know every freaking statistic. None of how can any of us? And he's usually marching around with certain statistics. And I think we're pretty grounded in some important statistics in our beliefs. But again, I think once I was presenting even some of that data to him, that's what really made him start getting pissed off, is because, he didn't have any retort for that data, you know. And here's the thing: people should be able to discuss and disagree civilly. And this is another thing I was going to bring up. And then, Aaron, I want to bring up just a few more points about the current crime rates that I picked up a little bit from the newer versions of the UCR. and this is what I was going to say. So this individual is absolutely leftist. He seems to believe in Marxism now. I don't think he did in the past. So I don't know. And maybe he just kind of sheltered that and felt that, it was his time to try to educate me. But so isn't it interesting, Aaron, that those of us that are conservatives and believe in liberty and believe in taking care of ourselves and our family and
Self
our friends,
sufficiency.
self sufficiency, we're always being portrayed as violent people, right? And here in this very instance, this individual, what was his eventual what was his eventual arrival? It was to essentially, I mean, Aaron, he gave me two assault cues. He clenched his fist and he took a step back. That's a
Yeah.
classic, you know, unconscious um, assault cue. You know. Now, was I worried about him? No, but that's just the way I feel. I feel I trained enough that, you know, and I know this gentleman really well. The point is that it displayed to me that I needed to be ready to defend myself. So, yeah, it's just wild that the left are the ones that resort to violence, is my point, right? And, I know some of our
Well,
audience members. Go ahead.
compare the so-called. We're going to get down to brass freaking tacks here, and I know we piss people off sometimes. If you get offended by this stuff, sorry, you're listening to the wrong show, because we care about freedom. And these issues deal with freedoms and therefore freedom to protect yourself. I was going to talk about something about Hawaii, but I don't think we have time today, about them basically looking back to the monarchy of Hawaii not allowing any weapons as a basis to talk
Oh yeah,
about not
and we
being.
can hit on that. I can talk about
No, no, no,
this
no.
other data.
Well, maybe I'll at least mention it as a closing
Okay,
thing and not comment on it a lot, because
Aaron. Yeah, I
it is
can
critical.
absolutely swing through this real fast.
Yeah.
So, and I won't go into a lot of the details, but the FBI's
So wait a
UCR.
sec. I'm
mm,
sorry to circle us back. We're kind of meandering. I just want to make the key point about the violence issue. The January 6th so-called insurrection. People don't know what an insurrection is if they've used propaganda to call that an insurrection. That's what I'm talking about possibly pissing people off.
Yeah,
There were some semi-violent people there. Okay, I understand that. But literally most of it was just some rowdy people going to places they shouldn't have.
yep,
Going
rowdy
into the
fools.
Capitol. As far as I know, they were breaking the law in many cases, but they were primarily just walking around and taking pictures and stuff.
Yep,
Right. Now, I don't know everything about that, but long story short, but what is easy to see is the violence of the riots of 2021.
absolutely.
And no one threw um, firework mortars that will blow someone's arm off. No one threw those around January 6th, but it was happening all over the country. People throwing those mortars, which are like mini grenades.
Yep,
And I mean, the stark difference of violence.
countless injuries from them, by the
So, in other
way. And,
words,
and there were people that died. There were, and I don't have the data in front of me
oh
right
yeah,
this minute.
definitely people died in those riots. So where is the violence? And we're just talking about one instance, but I don't know of conservative, let's call it, and what they like to call it as a pejorative, right wing. I don't remember any right wing riots that were violent like those.
Nope,
Okay,
nope.
so that's enough about that. I just want to make that point.
So, Aaron, I won't go too far into the details on how, the UCR has changed the way that they gather data. And it's with this newer national incidents based reporting system. And so, to my knowledge, it is that the FBI went with um, the Justice Department's justice and uh, see, what is it? I always get this mixed up. It's the justice systems, or excuse me, the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Goodness
Uh-huh.
gracious, I'm
Yeah.
tripping over my words today. They combined an effort with them to get a more, a more proper look at statistics, but there's also a lot of estimates in there. So, Aaron, I'm just going to be up front. I really want to talk to, John Hearn about what his thoughts are on this new NIBRS system, but it does sound like there's more scientific modeling involved for estimates of departments that didn't, submit data, so on and so forth. So, maybe it's better information. Maybe, who knows? I guess that's, it will find out, I guess. But anyway, Aaron, we know that murder rate, and that's just going to hit on a few of these, in between 2019 and 2020 rose close to 30%. It was right at 29%, the highest rise in murder in over 100 years. So that was a massive increase. And I don't have the aggravated assault numbers in front of me. I just don't have them. But that went up too. But in 2021, there was kind of blended information. Murder increased another 4.3%. And I had also seen the BJS's numbers that murder possibly went up more like 44% in 2020. But I again don't have that in front of me, but I know I read that data. So an interesting thing did happen in 2022 is that violent crime overall went down 1.7%. Murder went down 6.1%, which, yay for that. That's good. Rape decreased as well. Aggravated assault decreased 1.1%. So that was kind of, essentially stable. But so, yes, some of the highest violent crime is down a little bit. But remember, we were up
It's still
30 to
higher. It's still
40%,
higher.
right? So, and we see those numbers ebb and flow. But let's just face it, that big jump, we haven't went down much from that at all.
Yeah.
But here's some interesting data too, which kind of makes sense with what we've been seeing. Lack of enforcement, these DAs not prosecuting violent crimes, and even theft crimes. So
No cash bail, etc.
yeah, no cash bill. Robbery increased 1.3%. Property crime is up 7.1%. Larceny,
And what
theft up.
period is this, bro?
This was last year, 2022 numbers, because it's
Okay.
always like a year behind.
Yeah.
Larceny, theft up 7.8%. That's a lot, man. Motor vehicle theft up 10.9%. So I guess what I kind of correlate from that, Aaron, is crime is still rising.
Hmm.
And a lot of this larceny and robbery, who knows where that can lead. These folks that are not afraid of getting prosecuted for these crimes, who knows what else they get into. Bottom line is crime continues to rise, and that silliness from this individual, trying to attribute that, hey, we're at the lowest crime rate since the 70s is how he stated it, is
It sounds
just,
like he stopped his analysis at about 2012. It sounds like.
oh, it's no 2017. And I know what data he was looking at, because there has been some charts go out that showed those timelines. And it's an overall macro view, but that chart happened to end in 2017. So just saying that.
Okay. Well, good
So,
stuff, buddy. Full circle. It's ridiculous for him to believe and then assert that, number one, that the nuclear family is bad and should be dissolved, and that it somehow contributed to decreasing crime. I mean, dude, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's stupid. That's not ignorant. That's stupid.
Yes, it is,
Okay.
Aaron. And for such a smart guy,
Yeah.
literally, he is a very smart person.
You don't get into the field that you're in without being pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah. And he is absolutely smart. And I've respected him over the years for his intelligence. But again, then you look at these beliefs that he has. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is stupid, man. To try to correlate that with one instance of trying to say that the destruction of the nuclear family has led to a decrease in crime. Yeah. And then ignoring the fact that we had a massive increase in crime recently.
Yeah. And
So,
over a very short period.
yep, very short period. And
Well,
it's
Eric,
yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think we've covered that pretty well. I do want to close us out by reading something, and we don't need to do a lot of commentary, but it was just so important. It was almost a month ago when this decision was released, but it's still so important because I don't know how many people have seen this. But I just want to comment or talk a little bit about the fact that multiple states, right, have reacted to the Bruin decision from the Supreme Court of the United States in defiance, like New York State, New Jersey saying, okay, you're going to make us have permits. Well, we'll hand out the permits, but you can't carry anywhere.
Yeah. We'll make every place a safe space.
I mean, for instance, you can't carry in. Let me see. I wrote it down here. You can't carry in public transit, restaurants and bars that just, of course, restaurants that sell alcohol, libraries, churches, parks. So basically, any public space you can't carry. And out of those places, where are you most likely going to need protection? In the damn subway.
Yep.
Okay. So now this brings, so there's multiple states. Well, the Supreme Court in Hawaii and Hawaii State in general has been one of the most brazen with this decision. Okay, so this was a decision again from the Supreme Court of Hawaii, and this decision was written by Justice Todd Edens, and I'm just going to kind of read a few quotes from his decision. And it's this section says, as the world turns, it makes no sense for contemporary society to pledge allegiance to founding eras, culture, realities, laws, and understanding of the Constitution. He went on to use something. There's actually it is a statute in Hawaii, and it's called the Law of the Spirit of Aloha. Okay. And he
Yeah.
quotes that here, and he says, the spirit of aloha clashes with federal mandated lifestyle that lets citizens walk around with deadly weapons during day-to-day activities. And then just interjecting there, meaning that citizen is a person with strong standing and a something that is not afforded to everyone in the world, a true citizen, right? But that citizens are the problem, again, with being able, that they're the reasons that crime could increase. Now, so essentially, this decision was an appeal by a gentleman named Christopher Wilson, dating back to an incident in 2017 where he was caught with a concealed weapon that he had purchased from Florida and had not registered and obtained a permit to carry in Hawaii. So of course he got into legal trouble over that. Now, this is, let's see here. Um, I want to kind of skip around here a little bit because there's all kinds of commentary on. Oh yeah, this is another thing he said. He said smooth bore, muzzle loaded, and powder and ramrod muskets were not exactly useful to colonial era mass murders. And life is a bit different now in a nation with a lot more people stretching to islands in the Pacific Ocean. A lot more people doesn't mean your freedoms get taken away.
No.
And modern society, and he says, the Bruin decision snubs the Bruin ruling snubs federalism principles. And in Hawaii, there is no individual right to carry a firearm in public. Okay. Lastly, and we'll end this off. This is one of the most hilarious aspects of his decision here is that let's bear in mind, bro, that Hawaii became a state in the United States in 1959. So Hawaii joined the United States with its protections in multiple ways from as in protection from invasion from foreign countries, etc., partaking of the benefits of being in the United States.
Yep.
But in
Partaking in the economy.
and and therefore if you're going to partake in the benefits of the country, you're bound by the Constitution of the United States. But listen to this. So he harkens back to 1833. Let me see if I can pronounce this right. In 1933, King Kamahama III promulgated a law prohibiting any person or persons on shore from possessing any weapon, including a knife, sword, cane, or any other dangerous weapon. So they're part of the United States as of 1959, and part of his legal decision refuting a United States Supreme Court decision, the Bruin decision, he's going to refer back to when the state was a monarchy and basically harken back to a better time when the king didn't allow any of the subjects, not citizens,
Yep.
but the king didn't allow subjects to have weapons.
Well, and
Are
then
we subjects to a
not at
monarchy
all.
here?
And I think the main point is that it's the text, history, and tradition of the United States clause in the Bruin decision completely blows that silliness out of the water, and he knows it, or he's just yeah. I mean,
Well,
he has
I
to.
think that I think that all of these states and courts and attorneys generals in these blue states, let's just call them that, they're kind of being petulant and throwing fits, and so
Yep.
they're going to throw everything legal back at the Supreme Court,
Knowing that we'll have to go through the court systems.
even if they know they're wrong. Just like when anti-gun DAs put people that have protected themselves with lethal force, put them through the legal process as the punishment.
Yep. Well
So,
said. Yep.
well, I think that's good coverage of that. I just wanted to talk about that more than anything. Talk about the absurdity of a Supreme Court judge in a United States court referring back as some sort of precedence
Yeah.
a monarch from 1833.
Right. That's like us basing any of our common law based on any laws before our country had a constitution.
Yeah, and a lot of our laws are based on that common law, but that does not mean that other than looking at it as a frame of
Framework. Yep.
thought, that we aren't bound by that common law. We
Nope.
we gathered some of that and built off of it, but the founding law is the Constitution. From that point, that's where it matters. Analyzing it, that's a different thing. But I guess he's analyzing it too, but not even close to an analogy that's valid. So,
Yeah.
well, bro, I actually have a gig I need
Yeah. I
to
was about
get
to
to.
say we went over because of my phone call. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's all
man,
right.
let's go ahead and call it a day, man. I tell you, I had a blast, Aaron. I'm glad we got this rolling.
Oh yeah, I think we got a few things off of our chest.
Yep, yep.
So,
Got to
well,
test
bro,
out my new mic and all
sounds
that good
good.
stuff too. Well, all right, Aaron. Well, you take care, man. I love you. We'll talk soon, okay?
Love you too, brother. Have a safe trip home.
All right. Bye.